Welcome back to Steel and Vance. Heady subject matter here. Trigger alert for some. This is a terrible, terrible story.
We're talking about Robert PICKTON, a notorious serial killer. He was convicted of murdering, I believe, 6 women, but he bragged about killing 49. And guess what? I mean, he just died because he was attacked in prison.
In Montreal, yeah.
I had about 1,000 people weigh in on that when I reposted that news on social media, and people said, good. There was a lot of people cheering that news. And can you imagine the victims?
Victims' families. Oh my goodness.
This was some of their reaction.
A relief and just and happy. To be honest, I jumped up and down.
So I'll tell you what, there was actually a big inquiry looking into how did this happen? What went wrong? How do we prevent it from happening again? And that was over a decade ago. There were over 60 recommendations.
63, yeah.
A lot of people are saying, I wish more had been done. But we want to introduce the guy who was sitting at the center of it all, Wally Oppal, the former Attorney General of the province. Thank you for coming in. It was the inquiry head. What was your reaction when you heard that Robert PICKTON had died?
I wasn't surprised.
Yeah.
Prisons are very violent places, and PICKTON went in there with a target on his head. He was notorious, and there's no doubt in my mind that people in the institution would have loved to have taken a run at him.
Right, the credibility that you receive in a prison.
Yeah, and the other thing is, they could probably never lay a charge unless someone confessed, because there'd be no eyewitnesses. There never are in those types of cases when someone gets killed in a jail. So.
But somebody might say, how does that happen in our jails? That someone of his level of crime, who would go in with a target on his back, that somebody would have access to him to do that?
I think that's a good question, good observation, but I think what happens is that he's been in there since 2002. So probably, since nothing much has happened, the people in the institution thought, well, it's safe enough that he can go into the yard and be in the general population.
Looser.
I assume that's what happened.
Right.
I don't know.
Who knows?
So let's talk about the fact that he bragged about killing dozens of women and now is essentially kind of taking some secrets to the grave. A lot of people say he didn't act alone. And now will we ever know? What do you think?
Well, there's no evidence that someone else acted with him. He sent me a couple of letters in which he denied doing anything. But
denied killing anybody?
Yeah, he said it wasn't him. It was all the people that were coming in there.
Right.
And he referred to a lot of the details. Serena Abbotsway's inhaler was found at the scene. She was one of the women that was killed. And he said, well, someone dropped that device there, the inhaler. I couldn't have done that. He said, I, in fact, loved the women. I helped them. I used to bring them in from the downtown east side because they needed help, and I gave them drugs, I gave them money. And I had sex with them, but I never did anything violent because I cared for them.
That's disgusting.
He believed his mind movie there.
Yeah.
What have we learned, Wally, what have we learned about how long the investigation went on without the obvious evidence?
That's a good
flagging,
question. That's
right?
a question that should be asked. And there's one line that I did to summarize what we did, and that is that the PICKTON story can be summarized in one line. It involved egregious police errors and public indifference, because women were going missing from the downtown east side of Vancouver in the late 80s. Yeah. By 1991, there were 26 women completely missing. No one knew where they were. There were no bodies, no crime scene, and nobody cared. But the police got together and they had a meeting in 1991, and their issues that they wanted to find out the answers to ones, were these women the subject of foul play? Were they even murdered? And is there a single offender? We don't know. So they abandoned the investigation. They weren't getting any help. And so what happened was that the people who lost relatives, an example, a woman would go to the Vancouver police and say, my daughter's missing. Ma'am, we don't have time to look for hookers.
Oh,
your daughter is a drug addict. What do you expect us to do? An Indigenous woman would go there, why don't you people look after your kids? Those were
Are
the.
you kidding me
That's
right
the
now?
stuff that.
That was said back, but not that long ago. Like
No.
1991 is not that long ago.
That's right, and so that
That's
kept
gross.
going on.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, people started thinking that maybe something is terribly wrong, even though we don't have a crime scene and no bodies. There was a criminologist named Kim Rossimo. He's a PhD. And he worked for me in the first inquiry I did in the 90s. And he came to the VPD and said, he was a member of the VPD. He was fast-tracked, but he wasn't received with open arms because he's a PhD.
Right.
So the other officers didn't like him. So in any event, he said, we have a serial killer on our hands, and I'll tell you why. First, he said, there's no crime scene, there's no bodies, these are vulnerable people. Serial killers always take advantage of vulnerable people that no one listens to.
Right.
Clifford Olson, Ted Bundy, the Green River Killer, Bernardo. They're all examples of that. And secondly,
Oh, that's chilling.
there are multiple police agencies that don't share information.
Well, and that's the key thing. They were operating in silos, and the RCMP maybe not talking to this detachment, and you were an advocate of a regional policing in BC. That's kind of maybe on the table for down the road, but we're not there yet. What do you think should happen?
We recommended that in the first inquiry I did in 1994, and but there are too many political issues involved, and every mayor and every council likes to have their own police force. Now, there's legitimate reasons to have your own police force, but this is a classic example. Ted Bundy case, all of those serial killer investigations were classic examples of police agencies not sharing information. Charles Manson, the Los Angeles Police Department and the Sheriff's Office were across the hall from each other. And if they'd gone and shared information, lives would have been saved.
Yeah.
In this case, there was a woman we call Anderson. She was the only survivor. She was picked up by PICKTON March the 19th, 1997.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll give you another $100 if you come out to the farm. She's a very intelligent, bright woman who survived, and she lives in North Vancouver. And but she sensed immediately there was something wrong, because all these other women who were working the streets were going missing. There was no sign of them. She got in his truck and she said, I need to use the bathroom. Let's go to the gas station. He said, no, you'll come out to the farm. They get out to the farm, and her exact words were, I knew there had been broads on the farm because I saw condoms, panties, all this stuff.
The evidence was there.
Yeah, all this evidence that there have been women there.
So what is it going to take? I think the big lesson here from just this short conversation, we could literally do hours on this with you. You're so well versed in it, obviously. What is it going to take to get our various levels of law enforcement working together?
Well, I think this is a hard lesson. I think a lot of it's on its way now with the IHIT and all the various agencies, but still the management functions are still different. And I think this province is doing a good job in moving towards a system of regional policing. We have better technology now.
Yeah.
They're sharing information on a real-time communication system.
Should be a team sport, it feels like.
Yeah, I know
right?
that. And I mean, at that night when Miss Anderson, we call her, that's not her real name, when she stabbed him, after they had the sex act, she went to use the phone, and he grabbed her, and she picked up a knife and cut him across the throat. And he picked up a knife and stabbed her. Wow. So she managed to get out to the road from the farm, and she was taken out to Eagle Ridge Hospital. While she's there, oh, by the way, she had a handcuff that he tried to handcuff her.
Oh, my God.
And so they get to the hospital, and PICKTON is brought in. He's bleeding, you see. And so then the police are called.
In the emergency.
And she died twice on the operating table. She survived. She told the RCMP the next morning, he said, PICKTON told me that he goes to the farm at least once a week to bring women to the farm. That information was never conveyed to the VPD.
My God.
Had it been conveyed, you see, the women were disappearing from city of Vancouver, an area policed by the VPD, and taken out and murdered in an area policed by the RCMP. Had they shared that information, the VPD would have known and they would have put 2 and 2 together.
That's the greatest
Wally,
lesson here.
we need to have you in an hour discussion because there's so much that you know. Very, very quickly, do you still think about the women?
I think of them a lot. When you flashed the
photos?
I knew who they were. I've got the poster of them. You know what? It was gut-wrenching for us. It's absolutely, one thing we don't think about is that people who work in the business are affected by it. The police who testified before me welled up when they talked about it.
Yeah.
We could have caught them. And this is what happens, you know. And,
So learning that lesson, though,
yeah.
is paying homage to them to some
Yeah.
degree, if we learn the lesson. But if we continue to make the same mistakes over and over again,
you're
then
absolutely
they
right.
die in vain.
We need to move forward.
We do.
We need to learn the lessons that we didn't learn in the 90s, and I think we got better type of policing now. We have more intelligent people. You can't get into a police force now without post-secondary education of some kind. So I think we're on our way, but we have to set aside some of the political differences that still exist. I mean, you saw what's happened in Surrey, what politics interfering with policing.
Yeah.
But we have to set that aside, and good people have to come to the forefront.
I tell you what, it's too bad that Ms. Anderson wasn't successful. There had been a lot of women who would have been alive today. Wally Oppal, thank you so much.
Okay, my pleasure in being here.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
What an intense conversation that was.
Oof. All right. Okay.
Yeah, let's move forward.
So he is not letting a disability stop him from living life and having adventures. Former Humboldt Broncos star Ryan Stresnitsky joins us next.
And we're going to lighten it up big time here with our viewing party, right? Yes, Herb and Burnaby, you're on TV.
We have Lisa, Vienna, Jada from Victoria. Hello to everyone.
Nigel and Candace in View Royal, hello there.
And Tracy in Saanich. Thank you for watching, and you can send in your photo and tell us where you're watching from. Viewing party at checkmedia.ca.